Hello, everyone. Welcome to our sixth meeting. We're going to be going over bendy limbs today. And Roman, if you'd like to take it away.
Sure thing. So what are bendy limbs? They're basically rigs that allow you to curve/bend your limbs to create a more curved and appealing shape. It's good for achieving greater flexibility and control over your limb rigs, and allows for blend shape deformations on the limb.
Dara, if you'd like to take it away.
And absolutely. So the most common method and one that's most familiar to us, the officers, is the ribbon method. So first off, you would kind of, for your bendy limb setup, you would want to build the ribbon. So through that, you would kind of create a ribbon loft. So to do that, if you have like a segmented ohm setup, you have like multiple joints on your own setup, you would grab the curve tool and then kind of make the curve by vertex snapping on each segment joint in your own. And then after creating that curve, you would center that pivot and delete your history, and then duplicate that curve and then translate to create like the two curves that would eventually form the ribbon loft. So you would loft that curve, and then of course, if you just have your shoulder, elbow, and wrist, you can still kind of make that setup by just vertex snapping at your shoulder, elbow, and wrist, and then also then smoothing the curve to have more CVs to work with in your ribbon setup. And then you would, of course, then center that pivot and delete history, kind of that same process, duplicate, translate, loft the curve, to create a ribbon loft. And so with this ribbon method for making the bendy limbs, it's very similar to the ribbon rigs, and we've gone over in previous lectures on how to create ribbon rigs. So the only difference here is how you kind of connect them to your arms or to your limbs. And so to kind of go over how to make the ribbon again, you take the loft that you created and then you would apply follicles to it through end hair. So you would create the hair and then kind of take just the follicles from that hair system and delete everything else. So you would just keep the follicles. And then you would put joints under those follicles, then create fine joints, and attach that to various parts of the loft. So more likely either on those segmented joints or like where the wrist, elbow, or shoulders are. And then you would bind those bind joints to the loft, and then you would create the controls for each of those bind joints because they're going to be driving your ribbon and directly connect their transforms to the bind joints. And then you would skin your follicle joints, the ones that are driving the ribbon, to a blend shape of your base geometry, and then you would attach your base to your blend shape. So I will be passing the baton to Brandon to kind of further explain how to do the bendy setup through ribbon.
The major point of differentiation between a ribbon rig and a bendy limb is setting it up, is connecting it to your arm or leg. I'll just be using the terms for shoulder, elbow, and wrist for the rest of this, but you'll basically in this case, I'm going to assume that we have like five bendy limbs, five bendy controllers, one at the shoulder, the elbow, the wrist, and then two controls in the middle. However, you could very easily adapt this next step for if you have like two controllers in between your elbow and your shoulder. But for your major landmarks on your shoulder, elbow, or wrist, you'll simply parent constraint their offset groups to the result joints. So the joints that are being bound to this, that would have been bound to the skin, will now be controlling the position of these landmark joints. Also, you could, if you weren't building this bendy setup to be in line with your arm, like, and you just took a simple NURBS plane and kind of eyeballed it at the start and then built your ribbon setup, you could then keep the maintain offset turned off here and allow your and then you can make sure that your shoulder is pinning your shoulder bendy to your shoulder joint, for example. However, where it starts to differentiate in terms of your middle bendy controls, you'll want to point constrict. You'll want to kind of select. You'll want to select your, for the case of the upper arm, and in the for the case of like your bicep area, you'll want to point constrain that controls offset group to be pointing at both the shoulder and the elbow, so that it will always, whenever you translate around your elbow, it'll the bicep area will kind of halfway follow it. Then you'll want to aim constraint that same group to your elbow. So with your and making your elbow the world up object. So that way it will orient and kind of aim at the elbow at all times. So once you do that, you should be able to kind of get the same effect we have in this first slide, where the elbow control kind of drags the other two controls around with it. So it kind of gives it a bit of like a good default setup. But you could always just leave it without this, and it'll be just fine. I just like to do this because it just makes it a bit easier to pose at the beginning. The next part of this method could be just a bit of additional functionality, which is incorporating a sine wave deformer into your ribbon loft. In order to do that, you need to keep in mind that you can't add a selection based off a target onto a NURBS object. But you can just create a default target, which will allow you to, which is kind of like if you want to do create a live blend shape of your of an object. So you'll click on your plane and go to create add target in your shape editor, and then you'll right click on the new target and click the rebuild target. This will duplicate your NURBS plane while making that the live target. Afterwards, you'll simply apply sine wave deformer to that new target, and now you have a blend shape that can that's on your NURBS plane that will affect your result joints, so that you can get a nice sine wave in your arm or your leg. And you'll want to then set the drop off attribute of that sine wave deformer to 1, so that there's no deformation in the shoulder to clavicle region or the wrist to hand region. So that it will always drop off the sine wave at the wrist and shoulder area. But Roman, if you'd like to take it away from here for another setup.
Yep. And so the other thing that we mentioned earlier about the ribbon bends is, since they can do blend shapes, they can also do a combination of blend shapes to get a specific shape, which is really cool. So for example, in this one, I have a wire and a twist deformation going on to the ribbon itself. So basically you would have two targets. You would have one ribbon, one duplicate ribbon being deformed by a wire, and then have the other one being deformed by a twist deformer. And then if you combine those and have them both targeted to the main ribbon, you can get some really cool shapes. So like in this one, I have it so that it can bend up and down, and then it can also be twisted.
Derek.
And what separates them from ribbon, or what differentiates them from ribbon rigs, is bendy limbs can be achieved from different setups, and the ribbon rig is simply just another method that can be used for bendy limbs. But it's a pretty common method.
Yeah.
It's mainly I was gonna say that it's mainly the one that we discussed today, but we could either do like a demo on this, or we could also discuss like other methods that anyone else here has used to achieve a bendy limb setup.
Or if anybody has any general questions, we'd be down to answer those too.
So I had a question. Pardon my lack of knowledge with just rigging in general, but So when you have, let's say, two active blend shapes going on the NURBS plane, can you have both of them fully active? Because I know when I've worked with blend shapes before, it always like blends between the two blend shapes. But can I have them both like fully active, if that makes any sense?
In terms of like having an well, you can have two different like inputs definitely active at the same time. However, you cannot create a second blend shape, but you can add multiple targets and have those multiple targets influencing the same object at the same time. Like if you had a
Okay.
left smile and a right smile on a geometry, you can absolutely have those two active on the same time. They just need to be under the same blend shape node.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions or things we want to go over?
Could you show us the different method that wasn't the ribbon, or used the part of the ribbon, or you connected the two deformers to the ribbon? Whatever weird shit, or wave deformer, whatever.
Roman, you down to demonstrate that?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
Wait, you're talking about the sine wave deformer?
Oh, I think it was.
Or
Anything
just any of them?
just anything but the ribbon.
Yeah,
Like,
I think he was talking about the wire and twist deformer.
Yeah, that's what I really meant.
Okay. Yeah, that's the NURBS ribbon as well. But yeah, sure, I can show it off. So can you see my screen now?
Yeah, it's not. It isn't buffering for me. But is it buffering for anyone else?
No, it's good.
I can see a screen pretty fine. It's moving pretty well.
All right, cool. But yeah, so that little ribbon that I have basically works with the these two other duplicate ribbons that work with it. And so for one of them, I have it being deformed by a wire, and then I have clusters on those wires because there's basically three control vertices on it. So one of them will allow for this end, and then the other two allow for their respected areas. And basically, I just add the controller right here, parent it to that cluster, and it'll work with it like that pretty much. And then you can kind of bend this up and down, and it'll also work with stretchy limbs too. It can just be stretched as long as you need it, really. Let's see, and then with like the twist as well, it's pretty much just another duplicate of this exact ribbon, but all the way over here. And then just once again, just kind of like connecting some attributes to this controller in the on the end right here, and allowing it to twist on the x-axis. Like a nice little twist right there. And then with like the wire deformer, it's just a combination. You can really get an interesting shape.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, with the I guess I can kind of show how like the wire is made.
Might as well. Yeah.
So now this, yep, okay. So for the wire, it'll go. So you're going to want to create a CV curve on it. Just gotta make sure it's in the 1 degree. Yep. And let's see, I'll kind of have it placed over. If I can get it right here. No. Well, I guess for a quick demonstration, but yeah. So putting them on these sides. So then we have a curve right there. And then in order to create the deformer, go to deform, go to wire, click the ribbon, hit enter, click the wire, hit enter, and now it's this wire is a controller for the ribbon itself. So when it just goes up, it goes up as well. And so one thing that you'll see is it kind of has this like arch. You can get rid of this by clicking the wire that we have, or click the ribbon and then go to wire, and then the drop off distance, just set it to a crazy high value like 9,000, and then it'll be nice and flat. And so then from that point, you can just kind of reset it to the ground point. Review the drop off distance. So then we can start adding the clusters to each of the CV points. So then this should start moving that up and down. And then it's pretty much just connecting each controller to the the clusters. Like maintain offset. And there we go. So then that's the pretty much like the wire deformer.
Fun. Do you have this on an actual rig?
Yeah, I do.
Can we see that? I'm kind of curious, like how that looks.
Yeah, sure.
Like a character or something.
Just pull up my project. Taking a little while to. So I still have to figure out something that's going on with that, but yeah. So pretty much, I have the limbs for pretty much like kind of like the bones. So here's one ribbon, here's another ribbon. They both kind of connect at the elbow. And this is a dog rig for Ahmed's advanced rigging class for quadrupeds and just general non-human rigs. So that's what this is for. But yeah, and so you can start to connect some attributes to the to these wires as well. So with that twist, you can actually kind of connect it to like this controller down here. So I have a twist attribute that allows for the entire thing to start twisting. But then from there, I can also set it so that like twisting this controller will also twist the ribbon itself. And I made it so that it's just this ribbon down here, so the entire thing doesn't start to twist. And so it can be twisted, and then I still have the middle controllers, which can be totally bent like crazy.
Could you talk a little bit more about how you got the twist to carry through both ribbons and stay like aligned?
Yeah, sure. So I'm gonna do my best to remember exactly how I did it, but it's pretty much all from what I did in the node editor, which is just kind of pretty much connecting the twists of to the like the twist controllers that I had. So it's like this controller will twist, and I think this controller twist. So then it's it's constrained on both of these, I think, for the most part.
No, we can't see the node editor.
Oh crap! Yeah, it's in like a whole different window.
Mhm.
Let me reshare the thing. But yeah, so the twist will kind of edit the these twist points in the controllers. as in like the squares that we were using to actually twist the ribbon itself. So like these little squares. It's only on the two, but I'm kind of showing them all off for the demonstration. But yeah, and so pretty much like the bottom, and then it's the bottom of each of the ribbons basically, and see if I can get the other nodes I have for it. And so then it kind of goes from the IK controller to each of these. Pretty much through a plus minus kind of attribute.